Hello, friends. Today, the topic of artificial intelligence is in the spotlight, among the most pressing topics of our time. Economists and analysts are trying to keep up with trends and predict how all this can affect trade, the economy, sales of goods and services. How will AI change our daily life and the life of businessmen? Answer: of course, our life will change. How did the life of mankind change, for example, after the Industrial Revolution? Just 150 to 200 years ago, the vast majority of people, 80 or 90%, were involved in agriculture. People plowed the land and grew food, and manual labor prevailed. But everything changed when tractors and combines were invented. Manual labor lost its uniqueness and value. Today, only 5% of the population is engaged in agriculture. It's hard to believe, then, 80%, and today only 5%. It sounds like a disaster, the horror. Everyone was left without work, machines took away a person's piece of bread. But does this mean that people lost their jobs? Not at all. All these numerous people found other occupations for themselves. Someone, for example, began to produce and service those same tractors, cars, machine tools. Due to the fact that a lot of time was freed up, new niches appeared and the labor market changed. People simply had more time and energy to engage in science, art. Huge human resources were freed up, which, like water, filled the new needs that arose. The needs of a person themselves changed throughout life. We are all in exactly the same time fork in the road today, if we discuss artificial intelligence. In my opinion, there is no need to be afraid of this. Today, approximately 60% of the workforce are office workers, computer operators who sit in front of monitor screens and translate information from human language into digital, press buttons and enter, delete the necessary data numbers, text. Employees of banks, postal, tax services, doctors and medical personnel in hospitals, in a word, absolutely everyone is somehow connected with information technology. The need for manual labor has disappeared. When human resources are freed up, this gives a powerful impetus to the development of science, education, and creativity. Artificial intelligence will give us an impetus in many areas, in some ways actually replacing, for example, simultaneous translation. In the future, the content market will change dramatically in a few years or even months. All content is becoming global. Well, imagine that by installing a simple application on your phone, you will be able to communicate online with a native speaker of any language. You will speak into the phone in your native language, and your interlocutor will hear transformed speech, your voice, but in Turkish, for example. At the same time, the artificial intelligence program can know the context. Of course, the prospects are huge. There are many applied improvements. The tourism market will change, for example, any area of communication between people. Like the invention of the refrigerator in its time, this can affect people's lives, their interactions. We don't realize now how much the refrigerator has changed our life today, but in fact it was a revolution that allowed us to store food for a long time and conveniently. Many people today are afraid of falling behind, of not mastering, for example, ChatGPT, afraid of forgetting to implement it in their businesses. Calm down, please, you will have time for everything. You have been using artificial intelligence for a long time, even without suspecting it. Even many applications on your smartphone that you use every day already have artificial intelligence built in. For example, elements of artificial intelligence are already built into the camera on your phone. Therefore, you should not be afraid of not having time to do something. Imagine that you are now in the middle of the 19th century. In just 30 to 50 years, cars will conquer the world, asphalt roads, buses, trucks will begin to be built. And at this moment, for some reason, you are fussing. We must not miss it. We must not miss it. Friends, don't fuss. You still won't miss it. Do you understand what I mean? People's needs adapt to new technologies gradually. If you tell the average person in the 19th century that he absolutely must buy a car, he will most likely twirl his finger at his temple and say, "Leave me alone. I am comfortable as is, I have a cart and a horse and I don't need anything else." Needs adapt to the new not at once, but slowly. There is no reason today to tear your hair out and worry, how can I not miss artificial intelligence? How can I keep up with the global trend? While everyone still rides conditional carts and horses, artificial intelligence has not yet been as widely implemented as they say. Needs and psychology control all economic processes. If the average consumer of a product or service is not yet mature, then he will not buy your new, even the most progressive and useful, as you think, product. Only when real demand grows, you can worry about being late with your business. And even then it is better not to be the first, but to take into account all the mistakes and start a little later. Google was not the first search site, and others were the first, for example, Yahoo, but the first ones usually do not achieve outstanding success. So far, artificial intelligence is not relevant for most people on the planet, and it is unknown whether it will be relevant in the coming years or whether interest will simply dry up on its own, without finding a niche in the form of real needs for people. Will these new needs appear? This is a big question. Only mass suggestion and advertising cannot achieve everything. Man is a social creature, but in the biological sense he is an animal Homo sapiens, and before making a forecast, it would be good to study the nature of needs and human nature. For example, you often hear the opinion, they say that artificial intelligence will very soon change marketing and sales. No, friends, it will not. It seems to me that in sales it will never replace a living and emotional person. It's simply impossible. Just think about it, why do you usually buy any product or service? How does the buying process happen? It's always an emotional decision. You walk around the market and talk to real people, hear different opinions, get emotional from the sellers. How good this dress looks on you. Oh, what a gorgeous view. If the seller doesn't persuade you, emotionally offering you different options, then you will most likely pass by and not buy. A person is inclined to communicate and trust only a person. You buy a car to hear the admiration and opinion of your friends, colleagues, neighbors, and even the seller. And the seller who will describe the product to you, share his opinion, emotions, must necessarily have empathy, have emotional intelligence. Which, of course, is impossible in the case of artificial intelligence. The best person to sell you any product is, for example, Cristiano Ronaldo, charming and sincere, telling that he himself uses this product, than a conditional faceless robot, artificial intelligence. The most effective seller is a living person, the same as you will trust him easier and share communication with him. But how can you trust a soulless machine? Most people do not like to watch faceless content, voiced by a neural network. Advertising is more likely to be sold by a living blogger, a personality, an attractive and pleasant person. In other words, in those areas where artificial intelligence is effective, it has already been successfully implemented a long time ago. For example, various marketplaces or services for selling air tickets. Yes, in some situations, automation of the process of purchasing goods and services is important. And when choosing an impersonal product, such as, for example, an air ticket, personal communication with the seller is not important, therefore, automated trading systems are thriving in this area. But the list of such goods and services is limited, and for everything else, the personalized presence of a living seller is important. But in most areas of our life, it is difficult to do without a live person in sales, without communication, imitation, which fuels interest in the product. Well, how can you do without a realtor, for example, when selling a not very good apartment, illiquid and with hidden defects? How to sell a low-quality product without certain psychological manipulations? In this, a computer will simply never replace a live person. And in those areas of marketing where it was possible and effective, it has long been implemented, you are late. Electronic marketplaces, contextual advertising and the like have been implemented for many years. A personalized business will always beat a nameless business. This is why so much attention and money is paid to the development of social networks and the construction of personal brands. People first love brands, specific people, specific authors, and secondly pay attention to the quality of the product. A personal story, an example of personal communication, is a key value for a person. A blog will never be popular if there is no personality behind it, no specific interesting person. A creative product is always more valuable, and irrational behavior caused by biological nature is something that artificial intelligence cannot take into account. For example, in consumption there is such a conditional concept, standard product. For example, in food, this is a piece of quality meat or bread, this is a standard product, the most in demand by people. And it never becomes obsolete, it is always in demand, both in the 17th century and today. And in the production of the same video content, such a standard product, the most effective, is, strange as it may seem, a pornographic film. The number of views will always be higher than that of any theatrical production, feature film or documentary. The dramaturgy and events of this work, a porn film, are always the same, the plot is banal. Have you ever wondered what attracts people so much to watch it over and over again? You won't see anything new there. Why are audience reach and views always at their maximum? Because a person is a biological creature and it is impossible to oppose anything against instincts. A computer will not be able to replace a living person in the near future. Humanity develops and introduces new technologies only taking into account the psychology and needs of a person, and not because someone wanted to replace a living salesperson with artificial intelligence. It doesn't work that way. Friends, I hope I have given you some food for thought. Thank you for your attention. And until next time.